Hello, and welcome to Anamnesis.
Anamnesis.
In this episode, this is our second episode, we're going to be speaking about life and death and the philosophical aspects of those things. And if you haven't tuned in to last week's episode, it was Bereshit. I would highly recommend checking it out. It was an amazing episode with me and my co-host Mark. And today, what is it that we're speaking about? I already mentioned it, but go ahead.
So, a sort of a connection to our last episode. Today, we'll be talking about life and death, and presumably, we'll also be talking about the afterlife. But let's start with the good things. That's how I like doing my stuff. Let's go with life.
All right, so now, when I look at life as a more scientific individual, I look at it in like a biological aspect, where life stems from the idea that something needs to have a metabolism, it needs to breathe, it needs to have nourishment, therefore eating, it needs to have some type of movement, and it needs to reproduce in some way, whether asexually or sexually, like every living organism out there. For example, a virus, which is non-living, it does not reproduce asexually or alone, and it doesn't have the same functions as a normal cell. But a bacteria, which is a pathogen, like a virus, I'm speaking about pathogens in this case, reproduces on its own, and it also has the same metabolic functions as any other cellular microorganism or organism in general. But there are others definitions that we can approach this in. There is the philosophical approach of life where we kind of look at life and say, what is the purpose of life? What is life? And philosophy looks at life as depending on which school you belong to, like, nihilism, sociism, the school that Diogenes was in, I forget the name, but these are the different aspects. For example, nihilism is the aspect that nothing matters and we're all going to die. But this is the two sides of the coin in this case. That it could be a happier side or a sadder side. That nothing happens and we're all going to die, and that's happy, that's good, do everything. Or nothing matters, so better just die. Those are the two sides of the coin. But this is nihilism, and this is one way to look at life. What is your point of view when it comes to the religious aspect? Do tell me about that.
Well, I believe that life in general is one of the greatest things that we have. It's basically everything that we have. And in contrast to some people's perspective, which says that the whole purpose of this world is to build yourself to the other world, to the next life, um, I'd say that first of all, life is beautiful and we should appreciate every moment, but we also should be thankful for every moment. And actually, it's something that I believe in all the new age that we're going through, the new age area that we're going through. We can see people talking about the importance of gratitude, which is embedded, I believe, in almost every religion. In Judaism, I can see it plenty of times that, for instance, the first thing that every believing Jew says every morning is thank you. Not a lot of things, a lot of people know it, but the first thing that a Jew says in the morning is thank you that you brought back my soul, because we also consider in the Jewish belief that sleeping is, if I believe so, one sixth of death.
Yes,
Like
that
you're sort of die when you
I've
sleep.
read that, and I do know the prayer you're referring to. In Hebrew, it's Toda she'achzarta bi nishmati. If I'm not mistaken, correct me.
מודה אני לפניך מלך חי וקיים על שהחזרת נשמתי ויהי בחמלה רבה אמונתך.
Yeah,
It's a long one.
it's a long one, but to translate it a bit, it basically means thank you, Lord, King, or like Father in this case, for bringing back my soul into my body, and I thank you for allowing me to live another day. There's also another interesting thing in Judaism when it comes to like life.
Hmm.
It has a purpose. It comes in many religions as well, the fact of purpose. that I kind of touched on when it comes to philosophy. But when it comes to science, the purpose of a living organism is to reproduce.
Yes.
And that is also something that is in Judaism. In
Yes.
Judaism, there is a, not they, we have an idea of reproduction. Like it is not frowned upon, rather it is like hailed or like um
It's given in a very positive it's given as a very positive concept, a very positive idea, and also it's the first, but literally the first commandment
yeah, it is the
in
first
the Torah.
commandment.
It's the first commandment.
The first commandment is to reproduce. It
Yes.
says that you should reproduce, and it's a good thing to reproduce, and it's something that needs to happen. And that is something that, in one way, connects the biological aspect and also the religious aspect. It's something that we must do as an organism to reproduce, and every organism wants to reproduce, because at the end of the day, we're all just a cluster of cells.
Yeah.
But when it comes to religion and philosophy, when you're looking at the purpose of life as a philosopher, as I explained, it depends on which school you belong to, which school of philosophy you belong to. Like I mentioned about nihilism in short, you can also belong to other schools of philosophy that believe that the purpose of life is to conquer a planet. Like there's absurdism where the whole idea of philosophy in absurdism is that everything is absurd, that
Hmm.
nothing is perfect, therefore it is perfect, and therefore it is absurd. It is not correct.
Hmm.
And this means that your existence itself is absurd. So therefore the meaning of your life is no meaning.
Hmm.
That is absurdism. That the meaning is no meaning, but also a meaning. Therefore, it's a bit paradoxical. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get it.
But absurdism as an aspect of living is a type of thing that we think about, and it comes off as a idea that the thing is, we must give something meaning. Don't you agree?
Yeah, just actually another thing that we can think about when talking about meaning in life. Basically, it's funny. I've heard it a couple of months ago that there are two things in life. Actually, no, three things in life that we as a society created. Some might always said not agree with me on that, but it's actually very true from what I think and from what I see. So those three things that we as a society of humans created in order to be immortal, let's say, because like at the end of the day we all die. The first thing would be art, because I might not live forever, but my art shall live forever. So here comes songs, here comes sculptures, here comes basically every artwork that someone does. Somebody makes something, it will remain and stay forever after his death.
So you say that art is a piece of the soul?
You might say that, but I'd say like in a more, how do you say, flat and not that deep level.
Hmm.
I know that you love philosophy, but I will be just flat with you that,
Hmm.
okay, we understand that we are mortals. One day we all die, but
Hmm.
art stays. It
Art
stays.
stays.
For instance, uh,
Adam is still around, the sculpture made by Da Vinci, and he's long gone.
exactly, we still listen to operas
The
or
Beatles,
the Beatles, yeah,
the
exactly.
mm,
Books by Agatha Christie, for instance. I just read a book by Agatha Christie, and she
George
died long
Orwell.
ago.
George Orwell is long gone.
Yeah, yeah. So the first thing is art. Second is medicine,
Yes.
because although we know that we are die at the end, but with medicine we can live for longer years. So that's why we develop medicine. We develop different types of medicine and different. We, how to say, we investigate how to live life healthier and therefore
Hmm.
living more. And the third one would be religion,
Right.
because you say that basically our religion has this concept that, okay, I might die, but then there is another life.
Right. But I want to kind of zoom in on the second thing you said.
Yes.
You mentioned, can you remind me what was it, the second one?
Medicine.
Medicine, right. Um, and you say that our existence is therefore mortal. It's has an end.
Of course.
It's finite. It's not infinite.
Of course.
You think there is a way to live forever?
To be honest, with how we're getting advanced with technologies every year, I wouldn't be surprised if I wouldn't say immortality, that I think we're far from it, but maybe in a couple of years, people would be able to live to 150, 160 easily.
People are currently like there was actually an article not like last week that this is by the way this is being filmed on October this is being recorded on October 26th. So last week for us is like October 20th and up. Um, the oldest woman in the US, she passed away. She was 115 years old.
Hmm,
But here's the thing. I'm gonna get into like a bit of like tinfoil hat type theory real quick.
of course.
Um, cryogenic freezing.
Cryogenic freezing.
Basically freezing your body while you're still alive to therefore, if you have a certain disease, to basically wait until science has a way to unfreeze you. And
So the first movie of Captain America.
kinda, but you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Yes.
I I think it's utter bullshit,
Yes.
but here's my take on immortality. I would never want to live forever.
Hmm.
I love the fact that my existence is finite and has an end, because then I know that at some point, what I did will never chase me again. Because I need to know that I've finished. Because my favorite phrase is where you rest at the grave. Like the whole life, you're always running after a certain goal where it's money, girls, a degree, or knowledge, or whatever you're running after in your life. You're definitely running after something, whether it's gains at the gym or whatever. I like knowing that at the end, it doesn't it doesn't come with me. And that is my nihilism speaking a bit. It doesn't come with me, all the stuff I have now in this life. And now when I live my life, I live to enjoy it. I don't live to impress someone else. I live to do whatever I want. So, with that being said, do you think that immortality would be a good thing or a bad thing, and is it achievable? And in what way would it be achievable?
I'd say, firstly, it reminds me of a question you asked me a couple of weeks ago about if I could know when I'll die, will I take it?
Hmm.
And I said absurdly and absolutely that I will not want to know when I'm dying,
I
like
disagree.
when I'm about to die.
You know that I disagree with
Yeah,
you
I know exactly.
because I say that I would rather know when my clock ends.
But here's the thing: why would you want to know it?
I'd rather know. I'd rather know how much time I have left. To know if watching one more TikTok video would really matter. I would really want to know if if my clock basically appears over my head and I know when I'm gonna die and it says tomorrow.
I ju-
What do I do then? Because then I know I need to close everything I ever wanted. Honestly, the first thing I'm doing is I'm going to the bank and taking out a no limits credit card and running it up, doing anything and everything I want at that point. If I know that I'm for certain dying tomorrow,
Hmm.
but if I see the number being 60, 70 years from now and I'll be 90 by the time I die, which I hope I would, I know that I have time, that I'm not limited by what I'm doing now to what happens later. Because now I'm working towards a medical degree, and so are you. And we
Hmm.
feel pressure to finish because we're getting older and time is moving for us, and we cannot. We're getting too old, and we need kids and families, and our parents expect to see a wedding at some point, and my grandparents want to have great grandchildren. You know the feeling. So you feel rushed to do these things. If you knew what your clock said, you would no longer feel rushed.
It just
No?
feels to me that it gives you a total life-changing experience when you know when it ends. And also, to be honest, I just don't want to know. I just want to live life as it is. Like, putting death away because I want to put the emphasis on this world that I'm living, this life that I'm living, and not think about, like, people say that all of us are in denial to death. I don't think that I'm in denial. I know that death is coming, but I just don't put my emphasis on it because why would I care about something which will happen, but what does it mean to me? Like, what does death even mean to me?
Well, there is a philosophical quote about it. I do not remember who said it, and I do not know if I'm quoting it correctly, but um, it basically says that we spend our entire lives running from death, where instead we should be looking it in the face. I don't think I'm saying it correctly, but the meaning is there. Where we spend our entire life running away from something that is inevitable, where instead we should be making peace with it. Have you ever heard the conundrum of life and death sitting at a table?
Yeah,
So I'll tell it to our lovely viewers. So it basically
viewers, who
states,
sees you?
huh?
Who looks at you?
Viewers, listeners, whoever's out there.
I'm just having fun because it's one of the only times where I correct you.
Well, whoever's out there listening,
Yes.
back to the point. It basically says life and death sat at a table. I want you to imagine this for a moment. Life and death sat at a table, and life asks death, why do people love me and fear you?
Ah, I know that one,
And
yes.
death responds with a very simple answer. Because you're a blissful lie and I'm the ugly truth. This is extremely powerful as it comes off as death is that inevitable thing that we all hate, and life itself is a lie because we take life and give it meaning. We are not told when we're born, this is what you have to do. We're not born with a manual and it basically says to us, this will be your name, this will be your job, you'll be going to school from 7 in the morning to 3 in the afternoon since you were 3
Unless you live in a
o'clock,
totalitarian state.
unless
In
you live in
that
a
case,
dictatorship. Unless you live in a totalitarianism or a dictatorship, those are the two times where that may happen. Well, I'm just gonna reference Borat for a moment. If any of you lovely viewers have seen Borat 2, Tutar, his daughter, has this manual on how a woman in Kazakhstan should live.
no, and it's not something imaginary. Like, I believe that in countries such as North Korea or other dictatorships in the world, I don't know if there are other dictatorships
There's
like
many.
like stronger than North Korea.
North Korea is the most famous one that anybody would know.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
there are more dictatorships.
I,
There's African dictatorships, which are even worse.
mm,
But when it comes to like you have to live under a certain regime and you're told exactly what to do, and but I'm talking about like the meaning of life rather than like being told what to do.
yeah.
More of the aspect of like you're told that your purpose in life is to do X, Y, and Z. Your purpose in life is to be a doctor, to save people, or whatever. We chose this.
Yes, exactly. That's the thing, that people who ask themselves this question about what's the meaning of life, like the most, I believe, common question when you think about philosophy, I believe the answer will always be you give it a meaning. You give it a meaning. That's it.
Well, that's the thing. Every school of philosophy has a different meaning of life. Because every school of philosophy believes in something different. Like I explained to you with nihilism and stoicism, and every other school of philosophy has different meanings to life. And every religion also gives different meanings to life, although there's a common ground between all
In
religions.
monotheistic religions, it's
Even
usually, yeah.
even in non-monotheistic religions, like Hinduism and Taoism, they believe that you live for a higher purpose.
Mm.
Like in Hinduism, and not in Hinduism and Buddhism, even though it's not monotheistic, they believe that there is a piece of God in everything, in every living
Uh,
creature, and you must live to serve it. And the way you reach nirvana, which is like the highest of highs, is to uphold yourself of all your worldly
Possessions.
possessions to
Mm.
become a monk.
Mm. And that those are like the people that you see that they don't have any property, not
Yeah,
even money,
and
nothing.
they don't speak sometimes. Sometimes they
Oh,
take vows of silence too.
wow, wow.
They don't speak, they eat very little, hence they're very skinny. They
Hmm.
eat very, very little for the only fact that they don't need it. They don't need this nourishment because up there they will be given the best of the best in nirvana. But down here they don't need anything.
Mm,
So they eat only to sustain themselves.
like once again, I'm not giving criticism to any religion. I respect everyone's belief. I just believe this is a bit of a suffering. It sounds like you suffer and that you deny yourself even the things you need because,
They deny themselves sex.
yeah, once again, like you should enjoy this world. Like, I don't think that there is a higher being that wants you to suffer. Like, although sometimes people who don't know much about religion or they have bad experiences with the religion, they say that religion is the most suffering because you're not free and you're basically a slave of a higher being that you don't know exactly. Like, let's say you don't know per se that it exists. But here's the thing that you put yourself in those situations because it makes you feel good. For instance, people say that praying is a waste of time. Most people that I know that pray, usually it's sort of a meditation. It again takes us to the similarity to the more Asian religions, Buddhism and Hinduism, that they have a sort of element of meditation there. Same as prayer.
Yeah.
It's a meditation,
Prayer is a
and
form of meditation, yeah.
yeah, and whoever ever done any sort of meditation, the state where you sit with yourself, you reconnect with basically yourself, your soul, what you are, and you don't let anything bother you. It's one of the greatest experiences you can have. I believe so, at least.
hmm
And it depends on how emotional and how connected you are to your spirituality.
Well, I know this is not my expertise, but I do want to quote a psalm
Hmm.
within the within one of the Jewish psalms. Um, we have a song, I think you know it. Ata Eloheinu you know that one?
This one, yeah,
Yeah,
it what we sang in Yom Kippur.
it's what we sing in Yom Kippur.
Yeah.
So that one, it basically translates to, a lot of it translates to, we are your servants, you are our master. We are your children, you are our father.
We
And
are your herd,
where
you are
you're
our
heard,
shepherd.
you're a shepherd. And that is the idea that that like pushes people away, that you feel like you're serving something that is higher than you.
Hmm.
And I think that you're not really serving, it's rather a relationship. Like
Yeah.
it's like a father-son relationship where again, I'm saying he because the word is masculine.
Hmm.
I'm saying he gave me morals, allowed me to, gave me life, gave me a reason, and I am only giving back.
Hmm.
Just like my father gave me the life I need to be able to study medicine. He gave me money. He gave me my basic necessities when I was younger, and I gave him back. I'm gonna give him back later in life, where he will might need the help. I hope not, and I will give it back to him. I'm not gonna give him money back because he may not need it, but if he does, I will. And this is the thing with having a father as God. He doesn't want you to suffer, rather, he wants you to succeed.
Yes. Yes.
And he gives you these morals and he tells you these things so you succeed. For example, I thought about this as a person who doesn't keep kosher. I eat pork, for example. I shouldn't be eating pork, not only because it is forbidden in my religion, because it's actually really unhealthy. I would really advise all you out there to do your research about pork. It is a very unhealthy meat to consume. It's full of fat and it may lead to certain diseases. So I would really, really highly, highly, highly recommend you go and try to at least do some research about it. And I would say that this is one moral thing that I can kind of get behind and say that, hey, this is correct. And you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. I can get into something even more that I at least see as even more crucial, and a lot of people in Judaism and in other religions where there is this aspect and they ignore it or forget about it or think it's not that important. The whole concept of charity, which is not even has it doesn't exactly have to be money. Like money is how we say the most fluid charity that you can give. Like you can use money for everything,
Hmm.
but just giving something to someone, or even not to someone, just to your community, doing
Hmm.
volunteer work. People, I think, in most societies, in most Western societies, don't put much emphasis on it, on giving something just cause. Not because you want something, not because you own something, just cause.
Hmm.
And also, I remember this video that somebody showed me. I believe it was my sort of manager when I was working in the EMS in Israel. He showed me a video of someone lifting a can in the
Hmm.
street. Just somebody threw a can, he lifted it up, and somebody else saw it, and then it decided to take a broom and start sweeping the street. And then somebody saw it, and he was like, "Hey, I'll bring a power washing machine. I'll clean it." And that's the thing about he called it. Um, how would you say it? Take the next step.
Take the next step, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That even if you do some sort of a charity, some sort of volunteering work, you do something for someone, you might influence other people. Someone might see it, and you're like, "Wait, when have I done something like that?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is really instilled in the idea of Jewish life. Like we have our mitzvahs, which is our virtues, that we're told to give parts of ourselves. And like it's one of the highest virtues is actually to donate blood and bone marrow. It's our rabbi told us about it, and it's amazing that we should actually be doing that for others because you will be saving a life. And furthermore, if in your synagogue, you walk into a synagogue or a church even, and they have a donation box, if you cannot afford to give any money, you don't have to. And in most Chabad houses, which is homes for Jews around the world, if you go in there and you do not have money at all, and you're a Jewish person, you can be given a bed, a, a meal, possibly even transport if you need
Hmm.
it. They're there for you. It's like a home away from home. It's a family away from family. And this is the purpose of life of a Jew, is to pick up other Jews around you and to help, not pick up as in like lift up, but like more like lift up emotionally and like help raise other people up, help them become stronger. And
Yes.
that is something that I find amazing within our community. Do you have anything more to add about life before we move on to our other subject?
Mm. I sort of don't want to go to the next subject because to me life is so full of everything and I want to keep talking about it, but I think we summed it up pretty greatly, and I would just like to add that everybody who's listening to this, think about what can you do in this life in order to leave a mark, in order to do something that will have a meaning for you, not for anyone. Like, I'm not saying go have a fundraiser and build a hospital for orphans. It would be great if you can do it. Like,
If you can do it, do
it,
it.
it would be great. But just a little thing, just, I don't know, you see a homeless person, give him some food. You see somebody struggling in your class or in work,
Help
lift
them.
them up. Or even, like something that I think is amazing to do, talk to somebody who seems like he wants to talk but has no one to talk to. For instance, elderly. It happens so many times that elderly people who have so much to tell us young people, they don't have anyone to talk to.
Right.
And they just wish to share their experience, or share their knowledge, and usually they have great tips.
Hmm.
So, like, if you see someone elderly that needs help and you give him some help, like, talk to him. I bet he wants to talk.
I'm just going to leave a final remark as well about life. I think that life is beautiful and life is amazing. And I know that some people out there listening, you may be struggling with something. And if you are struggling with something, please talk to someone close to you, and understand that it will get better. It always gets better, and your life is beautiful, and you just need to capture it for yourself. It is your life. If you can help, if you help others, it will come back to you. This is the idea of karma. But if you see someone like he mentioned, like an elderly person, I'm going to take it as more of if you guys are younger viewers, if you're at a pub or a club or anywhere, a social event, and you see someone sitting alone, do not be afraid to approach them because what is the worst that can happen? Maybe that person really needed a pick-me-up conversation that day, and that's why they went to a bar. Maybe you needed to help one. I say each one that I teach one, I may have saved one. Because always spread your knowledge, intellectuals. Take your knowledge and be an intellectual. Knowledge is power, and knowledge is something that you need to spread in life. And if you do have knowledge, spread it. Be happy that you have it. Do not be arrogant about it, but be happy to teach. For example, help your classmates, help your group mates within your university, your colleagues if you're in work. Help them if they need help. Don't let them take advantage of you, but help them. For example, I can say that I help a lot of my colleagues in studying,
Hmm.
and as I have some experience, but they also have experience that is better than mine, and I'm always open to hearing ideas, and I'm human too. I make mistakes. So sometimes I make mistakes and I get corrected by them, and I put my head down and I say thank you. Right.
And now we become a motivational speakers. We end this podcast now. We go to TED Talk to
This
talk
is
about
it.
motivation.
We're done with this podcast.
Throw
Goodbye.
everything. That's
Find
where the
us
big bucks at.
find us at TEDx next week. Now we're joking. All right. So we're now going to be talking about death. So
Yeah. Now we're gonna be totally depressive.
yeah,
Like turn down the voice. Yeah. Mm.
death.
So
Right. So
death.
death. There's a few ways to define death. Um, the first way is legally, and the second way is biologically, and the third way is religiously. So, the first thing is that I'm going to go into is about the legal aspect of death. So there is, we just took three examples, but the United States and Europe and the rest of the world kind of differ. So the US has an idea that follows the UDD. This is the Uniform Determination of Death Act, UDDA. It was established in the 80s, and it defines death as occurring when there is an irreversible cessation of circulatory and respiratory function, or the irreversible cessation of all functions of the entire brain, including the brainstem, which, if you don't know, the brainstem is responsible for the functions of breathing alone, and like it's responsible for those parasympathetic functions of the human body, which is like breathing, blood circulation, blinking, any of those aspects the parasympathetic nervous system is therefore, and the criteria of brain death also determines if there's an EEG or blood flow, and it rules out any brain activity. This is why an EEG is needed, not an EKG. An EKG is for the heart, and EEG measures brain waves. And if the brain waves are at zero, that means that the person is brain dead. And but if there is even slight bit of circulation within the blood in EKG, their EEG will show something in the brain because it must be interconnected. In Israel, it follows the it's the Israeli brain respiration death law was in 2008 established, which I don't know how we defined it before that, but it's defined as an irreversible loss of function to the entire brain, including the brainstem, or a clear cessation of breathing must also be confirmed in that case. This is why most of the time after resuscitations in Israel, the body is left untouched for at least 30 minutes to an hour. And also, when given resuscitation to a patient in Israel, it must be at the very least 30 minutes that you must give um, life-saving procedures at the very least 30 minutes. In Europe, it follows the same criteria as Israel, the exact same criteria, and this is how it works. But France and Germany have different examples. Like France mandates that there must be an EEG measured, and in Germany, both clinical and confirmatory tests must be done by tapping the patient or asking them to move or something of that kind. this is what death is. It is the loss of function of all the organs within the body. But there's a big difference between brain dead and like body dead. But where is the soul tied to? This is my question.
Uh,
Is it tied to the brain or is it tied to the heart?
First of all,
Or is it even tied to an organ?
yeah, I think that from my perspective, the soul is not in any way connected to any organ because I don't think a soul is something which is physical. It's something beyond physical. Let's say, put it in terms, it's the metaphysics of our physiology.
Can I just say something on that?
Yes, mate.
I'm sorry I'm laughing, but I saw something really, really funny on Instagram the other day. Some guy tried to sell his soul on eBay. Okay, this is, bear with me. You can look this up. Some guy tried to sell his soul on eBay, and eBay took it down after people drove up the bargain to over $100,000 for this man's soul. And eBay said to him, there's two things that they took it down and they told him we took this down because of two reasons. Either you're selling nothing because a soul doesn't exist, or you're selling something which means that a soul is a human body part. So, which is illegal to sell body parts. So did eBay solve a philosophical conundrum or what?
I think it's more of a legal conundrum.
It's a legal conundrum, of course,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
you were saying
So yeah, the thing is that I think about this topic of where the soul is attached to, and generally the whole thing about death. First of all, it's a bit weird that a person has to decide, like a physician has to decide if a person is dead. Because first of all, I believe like in old times, like prehistoric times, it was common to just, okay, ooga booga, person is dead, like he doesn't move anymore, take everything he has and, I don't know, throw him, let him rot somewhere. Um, but, hmm, you see, it's just in general very hard to think about how can we define death? Because, okay, of course, there is all those guidelines that physicians have in different countries uh, in order to define who is dead and when should we stop resuscitation or stop doing life-saving acts. But still, how can we know? How can we know that someone is not
truly dead.
truly dead, truly not coming back, or even okay, that's another big question. That why does he die?
Why?
Yeah,
I mean, there is
of course I'm
multiple
talking in the
reasons.
deep, not like why did he die? I don't know. A fuck. I wanted to curse. A rhino fell on him. Okay. In a way, imagine it. You just walk down the street with a top hat.
A top hat.
A top hat.
Must be a top
Yeah,
hat.
you took a top hat with you this day because you have I don't know a
You thought
business.
it was gonna rain,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And it rained rhinos
yeah.
apparently.
No, just one rhino.
One
Straight on you.
on you.
Fell on you. That's it.
Was it a real rhino or made of like
A real
a
rhino.
real
A
rhino?
real full living rhino. The rhino lives, by the
In
way.
Manhattan.
Nah.
Where was it?
Lagos.
Lagos? The tallest building there is maybe 3 meters.
It still would crush you.
Oh, it would
Let's.
crush you even from a meter.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, okay. I define death as like, the person cannot speak, he cannot move, he cannot breathe, he cannot blink, he cannot function as a human being.
You know what it reminds me of? And it puts me like, I believe it's gonna be a great thing to talk about right now. The song One by Metallica.
One?
Yeah.
Okay.
In there, the story goes about someone, a soldier, who lost his ability to speak, lost his ability to see. Like, generally, all his senses are not activated anymore. Like, he lost all of them due to a landmine. But he has only the ability to speak through Morse code, if I believe. So yeah, something like that.
Right, right. I'm reading the lyrics right now, and he's asking as well to die. He's asking for death. Hold my breath as I wish for death. Oh, please God, wake me. Like this is one of the things. But look, I'm not saying that it's all those things individually, because a blind person is not dead.
Of
A
course not.
mute person is not dead. It's more of all the things at once.
That's the thing. Is he, in this case, is he alive? Because he
Yes,
is alive. He has brain waves and his heart is pumping.
this is why we have legal death.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Just people that are in coma.
In comas,
Yeah, in comas. Like, they can do.
comas,
Excuse my English, sir. Excuse it.
comas. A comma is an English.
People who are in the physical medical state of a coma.
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 Never mind. If someone's in a coma, yes,
English is not my first language. Excuse me,
it's
people.
all right. They're not dead. The people who are in comas are not dead, unless they are brain dead. And most of the time, it's brain dead, meaning you will not come back in your own state, and even if you may not ever come back because your brain is slowly eating itself. And
Hmm.
that's why they end up dying. But family members usually say, "Oh no, leave him there because he's a statue and he's just eating my taxes."
Yeah, that's the thing that I'm thinking about. Although it's a cruel thing to do, but I think in countries that don't have this, how do you say, this option of just unplugging someone,
Every country has the option of unplugging.
I think that some countries do not allow it.
You can unplug in Israel.
Yeah? Hey, in
Yeah,
Israel, I know that you can
you can
unplug.
pull the plug.
Yeah.
In the USA, you can pull the plug. In Europe, you can pull the plug. All of Europe, you can pull the
And
plug.
that's like I'd say the logical thing to do.
I believe it's also the logical thing to do, unless, like, not leave them there because that's cruel. Because they can hear. They can hear.
Some people.
Hearing is the last thing that goes. Did you know that?
Oh, really?
At the time of death, hearing is the last sense that goes.
Right.
The first thing that goes is motor functions, is movement. The second is, if I'm not mistaken, speech. Third is sight,
Hmm.
and then sensation, and then the last thing is hearing. You
No,
can hear up to 30 seconds.
no, it's interesting because in my point of view, like from where I see it, I think one of the most intimate things is the things that you can hear.
They
Because,
can.
yeah, and that's why music is so important in all societies. Music connects people, words that we hear, poems, all those things. I think that's the most intimate thing, and that's maybe why it goes last. Like, of course, I'm not talking in a scientific way of why it happens. I'm talking in a more philosophical, emotional way about why it happened. That's like my thinking when it comes to this.
It happens because that's usually one of the first things to develop scientifically.
Oh, really? Ah, really? Yeah, I remember.
Don't forget embryogenesis.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
It's
remembered it
one
right
of the
now.
first things, except the organs. Hearing, a baby can hear within its mummy's tummy. It can hear outside. So this is why a lot of babies hear techno and relax because their mum likes techno. So it reminds them of the womb. That is actually an amazing phenomenon.
That's a cool mom.
I've seen a baby that gets relaxed by Master of Puppets by Metallica. Like they play it on full blast and he just goes to sleep. Um, but that's because the dad is an absolute Chad and he played it on the belly every day for 9 months. That's dedication. But all right. So when it comes to death and determination of death, I agree with most countries having to determine it via brainwaves. But I also understand that it is cruel to keep a person alive whilst their body's shutting down. Because sometimes when someone is in a coma, their body will be in a suspended state where it's attached to a million machines, each doing a function of the body. For example, it's going to be breathing for you, it's sometimes it is doing dialysis. That is usually the first thing, dialysis in the kidneys. Then sometimes it's nutrition, giving you fluids and food through a tube in your stomach.
Hmm.
And there is all these machines are just there to keep you alive. But there is one machine, there's one thing that we cannot st keep alive and stimulate, and it's the heart. Once the
Ah,
heart is gone, it's gone. The only way to actually connect the heart to a machine is opening it up.
yeah.
And that is not something you do to a person in a coma.
Yeah, of course not. Of course not.
And when it comes to EEG waves in the brain, those are the thing that we look for the most in a person in a coma because they do show some kind of EEG waves, and their EEG waves are there, they're present, but they're not with us. So they can hear, they can feel sometimes. They cannot feel like immense pain, but sometimes they can, and it's like a nightmare. It's being like locked in syndrome if you've ever heard of it.
I think I've heard about it, but let's tell it to our listeners.
Locked in syndrome is a syndrome where your whole body basically kind of like you don't have control over your body no more, and you're in a vegetative state.
Oh,
You cannot speak. It's similar to ALS, which is
mm,
the disease that Stephen Hawkins had. It's similar to ALS, but it's this time you're locked in. You're just in your own head, and that's the only place you can ever be.
mm.
You cannot move, you cannot eat on your own, you cannot speak on your own, you cannot do anything, and you're in a vegetative state. But you can, most of the time, they can blink, they can like move their eyes.
By the way, that's an amazing thing when you think about people who are in those states. A lot of them, like from what we see in the media sometimes or in the internet, they do amazing things. Like for instance, I know of someone. I read about it a couple of years ago about someone who is in a vegetative state, like he's paralyzed throughout his whole body. He only has his eyes that he can move and his right palm. He can use it and like he can move some of his fingers. This person was able to code like he built a mechanism with the help of friends, of course, and also like he created a code because he was what do you call someone who code?
He was a
Programmer.
programmer.
He was a programmer before he became paralyzed. He was able to create software from which he can draw, because he had a hobby of drawing, with his eyes.
Oh, that's really
Like the
cool.
camera gets to see where his pupils go, and that way he can draw.
It's an eye tracker.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Mm.
And like it's amazing. He did it while being paralyzed in most parts of his body. And that like gives you a thinking about even if you're in sort of a almost dead
That
situation.
that is what I call suspended between life and death. I think that is limbo.
Yeah.
Although limbo has a different meaning religiously, that like heaven and hell, and limbo is the in between. But I believe that that is being in a literal state of limbo and
Hmm.
being stuck in a certain state. And this is why I don't agree with keeping certain people in comas that have a close to zero chance of ever coming back. Because why? Why? Just why? It's so unnecessary to keep someone in that state because they will come back and they will be even worse and you will have to take care of them. It's not that they will be a burden on you. I don't want to be cruel and say that, but it will be difficult to be with them. And it's a very sad thing to see because it will ruin the people around you. But the whole idea of death and where it comes is what leads to what we're going to be speaking about in next episode. Do you have anything else to say before I wrap this episode up, Mark?
Mm, I wanted to say that about those things, although we talked very briefly, but very deeply about the whole concept of death, still, any way you put it, it's a hard thing on us people because what we are afraid of, generally, what fear is, we are afraid of what we don't know. Like when you don't know something, that it scares you. You don't know what's gonna be on the next exam. You don't know what's gonna be on the I don't know this roller coaster you want to go on. And that's the thing. Death is the scariest because we don't know it all what's gonna be there. Like
Yeah.
nobody. I hope maybe somebody will return to tell us what's going on over there, but nobody will ever return from there. And that's what scares people. It scares people to see a loved one or even themselves go to this place. And yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, we don't know anything about it, and the only thing we can do is hope or stay with our beliefs, or just appreciate life. Once again, going back to our first topic.
Right.
Let's wrap this up.
Let's wrap this up. Thank you again for joining us this fine Saturday evening for another episode of Anamnesis. Next week, we're going to continue this topic actually. We're going to move forward with this. We're going to be talking about the burial rituals of many other religions, and we're going to be speaking about afterlife, how every other religion treated afterlife, how our religion treats afterlife, what's the scientific belief in an afterlife, and what is the philosophical idea of afterlife. So, thank you very much, intellectuals, for tuning in, and this is Case Closed.
Goodbye.